Hey everybody, Samson here. Just tuning in a little earlier to let you know that this episode you're about to listen to is recorded in a bit out of order. So what happened was I was supposed to go on a trip, and then Jordan was going to record his own solo episode for the week, but the trip got canceled last minute, so we ended up recording a regular episode of Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club. So the episode that you're getting today, right now, as you're listening to this podcast, is actually an episode recorded a couple weeks ago about Jordan's predictions for the upcoming year of 2025. Kind of a fun way to cap off the month of January. But because this was recorded a couple weeks ago, some of the predictions might already be null or wrong, like the Nintendo Switch prediction. But I hope you still enjoy. The rest of the episode is great, and Jordan did a great job on it. So please enjoy. This week, Jordan and I are recording a surprise interview that will be released the week after, so make sure you're staying subscribed on Grow Up Level Up on YouTube, of course, on your podcast feed, and everywhere that you have social media at Grow Up Level Up. But without further ado, we hope you enjoy this episode of Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club, the upcoming releases of 2025, hosted by Jordan.
Hello and welcome to Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club, your weekly podcast where you get to spend time with your hosts Samson and Jordan and chat about all the latest news and details around the video game world. Of course, each and every week we get together to talk to you about video games you should spend your 5 to 9 with after your 9 to 5. Now, if that sounds like a good time to you, then hey, thanks for joining. But if you're new around here, just know you can always catch Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club on podcast platforms everywhere, as well as YouTube. Just search for Grow Up Level Up and don't forget to hit that follow button. Now this week, Samson, of course, our usual host, has been sent on assignment. So assuming all goes well in the world, he'll be back next week with some exciting things to share, I'm sure. But of course, this means that this week, it's just me, Jordan, aka SirDrJM. Follow me on all socials at SirDrJM. Because it's just me, I thought we'd take a little bit of time looking at upcoming releases slated for 2025. See if we can find one or two each month that I'm personally looking forward to, or that, I can reasonably talk about. And so without further ado, let's get in there. Now, I'm going to share out my screen here for all of you fine folks to see. So we'll jump over here. This list is, of course, as you can see, from Polygon.com, posted by Michael McWhirter on January 10th. That was just yesterday, so it is fairly up to date, of course. The one thing to remember is, naturally, it's hard to capture every single release that's, going to come out in a single year. Plus, there's obviously a ton of unknowns. The article here will mention a few games that, we may know are releasing, but we don't necessarily know a date yet. That said, or at least are slated for 2025, but we don't know a date yet. That said, we'll kind of go through the list starting with January. And I think that makes sense since we are at this point, at the time of recording, I'm recording this a little earlier than we normally do. So we're, a third of the way through the month. By the time you're listening to this, a little bit past that. But let's take a look. So as I mentioned, articles on Polygon.com, all the new video games launching in 2025, your guide to 2025's game release dates. So let's take a scroll here. Again, Michael McWhirter, journalist with more than 17 years of experience covering video games, technology, movies, TV, and entertainment. A shout out to Michael McWhirter for this article. I looked at a number of different articles with, the same kind of content on different sites, and I kind of settled on this one. I actually really like Polygon as a site in terms of their design and everything, so I think this is a pretty good one. So, of course, article starts, he shouts out some of these games that might not have an exact date, but I'm not going to go through that. Let's scroll on down to January here. So the first one he's got on the list here. Now, what I'm thinking I'll do is I'll kind of glance through this. I'm not necessarily going to read out every single one, but I'll shout out a few of them, and, I might kind of just glaze over a few of them. So let's see. First one he's got listed here, January 7th, Ys Memoir. Can't say I'm an Ys fan. If you are, all power to you. Hey, drop a line in the comments here on the YouTube video, or, tweet at the Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club account, or, Blue Sky, whatever, and let us know what you're looking forward to in 2025. Continuing on here. Again, not going to go through every single one of these, but the second one here on the list does actually jump out to me. This is Freedom Wars Remastered. Of course, surprisingly, coming to the PC, PS4, PS5, and Switch on January 10th. Now, this is actually kind of surprising here, largely because Freedom Wars, of course, was originally a Vita game, a PlayStation Vita game. It was obviously, by nature of being on the Vita, it was kind of landlocked there to a console that I believe sold less than the Wii U. I think the Wii U lifetime sales are like 13 million units. And if I'm not mistaken, the Vita was even less than that. So definitely a game that I don't think a ton of people have experienced. However, at the same time, a game that people who did enjoy it, I think, enjoyed it quite a bit. Of course, as you know, on Grow Up Level Up, a gamers club, we're big fans of the Kind of Funny team and the Kind of Funny community. And Freedom Wars was big with Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty, of course, two of the founders of Kind of Funny. They talked it up quite a bit. So I'm interested to see this one jump to a new platform, or a number of new platforms, actually. Obviously, being a remaster, I don't know that I've really looked into it too much, so I can't say I've seen what kind of quality improvements it's getting, or how, from the ground up the build is. Is it more of a Resident Evil 2 remake? Is it more of a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Or is it more of just, an up-res kind of? I'm trying to think of a good example, but I don't have one right now. Anyways, it's also surprising that it's coming to Switch. I don't know anything about the developer, but being that it was previously a Vita game, I would have thought it was published by Sony. Perhaps those deals have just ended and now they can put it wherever they want, and it's a great way to reach a broad audience. Also surprising, it's coming to PS4. I kind of thought we were past the days where games come to all these platforms. But at the same time, I mean, if you look one before that, E's, also PS4, PS5, I guess it's a large install base. So anyways, look forward to Freedom Wars Remastered if that's your jam. Moving on down the list, I'm actually surprised because the next one on this list is Hyper Light Breaker. However, it's noted that it's early access on PC, coming out on January 3rd. The Hyper Light series, of course, Hyper Light Drifter, I believe, came before it. I have played. Can't say I'm too hyped for Hyper Light Breaker, but I'm interested. I really like the art style, and it looks like they're kind of stepping their game up with this one. I believe it's going for more of a 3D action style, whereas the previous ones were not quite in the same vein. But again, early access, PC only. Can you really call it full release? It says it right there, early access. So let's continue on there. Next one for January that kind of jumps out at me. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, coming out on the Switch, January 16th. Now, a couple of reasons this one's a little bit surprising. Of course, Donkey Kong Country Returns, getting the HD treatment, again, all the remaster, remake questions come to light. How much of a remake is it? How much of a remaster is it? Which kind of bucket does it fall into? Hopefully they do a good job bringing it up, and giving it a refresh or a makeover kind of thing. That said, January 16th, that's of course this week, not too surprising there. But the interesting thing about this, of course, is all the rumors that are floating about the Switch 2 right now. As you may know, CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, I believe, just finished in Las Vegas this past week. Lots of technology announcements, lots of video game announcements. Of course, I think Sony was really the only one of the sort of big three video game makers that was really there and talking about anything. And they were mostly focused on their movies and shows that are coming out. But there were lots of peripheral and third-party, peripheral makers there. And lots of products they were showing off that they can't officially say what they're for, but it's very clear that they're for the Switch 2. So with this one coming January 16th, a little bit interesting because I think everyone's anticipating that Switch 2 official announcement, even if it's a tease, that kind of thing. I would think they wouldn't want to overshadow a Donkey Kong game. However, again, this is an HD remake, refresh, remaster, whatever word you want to use. So maybe they don't care too much about cannibalizing those sales. Maybe, with it being the Switch 2, maybe every Switch game will be compatible on the Switch 2. I mean, that is definitely the hope for, I think, a lot of people, given Nintendo's sort of track record with that, but also the fact that the Switch was and continues to be such a sensation, right? I think there's a lot of hope that everything Switch will be compatible with Switch 2. I know for me personally, my big hope is that the Joy-Cons are. I know from what I've seen and what I've read, the Joy-Cons will be, I think, largely improved in terms of how they connect to the system. We'll talk about that another time. Of course, probably once the Switch 2 is announced. But the big thing about that is the fact that those Joy-Cons are so freaking expensive. I actually only recently bought a second pair because I finally caved. I had been limping along with one pair that had a stick drift, one third-party pair that I got as like a free gift for spending X dollars on Temu or whatever, so it cost me $2. So those things were basically crap, but they're pretty. And then one pair that I bought early on, and yeah, so I just finally buckled down and bought a second pair. I'm just really hopeful that either one of these peripheral makers makes an attachment that lets you connect old Joy-Cons to the new Switch, or they just work. That would ultimately be the dream, but hey, Genki or whatever the company is, I think it was Genki was the one that that was talking a lot about the Switch 2 at CES. Anyways, Donkey Kong Country Returns 8 coming January 16th. Moving on from there, we've got a Dynasty Warriors game. We've got Tales of Grace's F Remastered. Again, another remaster. Guilty Gears Strive coming to Switch on January 3rd. Jedi Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles coming to just about every platform on January 3rd. Bit of an interesting one there. Of course, that is a much older game, I would say, but an exciting one. You know, lots of people talk about Jedi Power Battles. I don't think it necessarily was the greatest game on release, but I think a lot of people have fond memories of it from playing it when they were younger. So I'm sure this one will draw some attention. Another one on here that will draw some attention, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC on January 20th. So interesting one there because, of course, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and what's the other one? Remake, previously locked to the PlayStation, but Square has obviously said that, you know, their sales have not met expectations, so they won't be doing exclusivity for much longer. So anyways, exciting that that's coming to PC. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy it there. And I know in terms of the PS5 version of, I can never remember, is it Rebirth? Remake that was first. I think Rebirth is the second one. So with the PS5 Pro, I know Rebirth was highly regarded as performing much better on the PS5 Pro. So I'm sure coming to PC, lots of people will be excited to pick it up there. Coming down the list, another exciting one, January 30th, Marvel Spider-Man 2 coming to PC. Of course, Sony first party, made by Insomniac. I love Insomniac. Pretty well every single one of their games are some of my favorites. I've been playing their games since the days of Spyro the Dragon, and I absolutely adore the Marvel Spider-Man series that they've put out on PS4. Did the first one come out on PS4? I think so. Anyways, coming January 30th to PC. So again, another one that I'm sure lots of gamers will be excited to get their hands on PC. Of course, with it being previously exclusive to the PS5. In my mind, probably the best of the three Marvel's Spider-Man series that Insomniac has made. Don't get me wrong, I think the first was awesome. I love Miles Morales. I know some people kind of see it as lesser than, I guess, or I've actually recently been talking to a friend who said he thought it was boring. He thinks Miles as a character is boring in those games, which kind of blew my mind. But at the same time, I was a little bit like, yeah, okay, now that you say that, like I could see that. I personally like Miles a lot. But anyways, I think Marvel Spider-Man 2 kind of took all the feedback and everything they were building to with the first and with Miles Morales. And I think they kind of brought it together and made the best package they could with Spider-Man 2. So anyways, look forward to that one on PC. Don't think I need to mention anything else in January. Of course, I probably skipped over some of those that some of you are out there screaming, saying, what about Sin Duality Echo of Ada? If that's the case, you know, drop a comment. Let me know what you're excited for that I didn't mention. Let's move on to February. So coming out in February, shorter list here, that's for sure. We got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X on February 4th. I assume if it says Series X, that also means Series X, sorry. And the only reason they do that is to differentiate between the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X. Anyways, I guess it should just say Xbox Series, and that would be plural. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I know, I wouldn't necessarily say a lot of people, but I know there are fans of Kingdom Come Deliverance, so I'm sure people are looking forward to the second one. I personally know nothing about it. Don't know why I stopped on this one. Gonna continue going on. Rift of the Necrodancer, coming to PC on February 5th. This one, I remember hearing lots of scuttlebutt about Crypt of the Necrodancer. Sorry, it's a mouthful. And kind of one of those sort of, I wouldn't say hidden gems, but lesser known indie that people who played really go to bat for. So I'm hopeful that Rift of the Necrodancer is just as good as Crypt of the Necrodancer was for them. Of course, probably the biggest release. Actually, there's a few big releases in February. Okay, one of the big releases in February, of course, Civilization 7 coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. February 10th. Obviously, Civilization series is, you know, one of the GOATs and one of the OGs in gaming, right? I mean, you're on the 7th century, but of course, Civ is a storied franchise that a lot of people love. I believe the only one I've actually played is Civ 5, could be 4 even, and I never got too into it. I've always wanted to get into the sort of RTS, management sim kind of genre. I know Civ is kind of a little bit different, but I just never have because I've never been super into PC gaming, of course. Nowadays, I actually do have a PC that probably could run Civ and Civ 7. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of like, maybe I'll give it a shot. Like, storied franchise, been around forever, highly regarded, of course, announced at the Game Awards. No, Summer Games Fest, maybe, this past year. I want to say it was announced then. I think it was a Jeff Keighley joint. So anyways, coming to all platforms, which is exciting. Of course, I would love to play it on PS5, but if I did pick it up, it just feels like more of a PC game to me. I'm probably not the only one out there thinking that. So, sorry, get the camera to focus. Anyways, I think, that's a big one coming out February 11th. I'm sure lots of people will be picking it up February 11th and playing it with their significant others for Valentine's Day. Moving on from there, a couple other big ones on the list for February. Of course, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, February 28th. They've actually, I was about to say the image here that they've got is actually for that, but it's not. So pause there. Don't look at that image. Blank it out. Cross X. Ignore that. Obviously, the next entry in the Like a Dragon series, kind of a spin-off type deal, coming from, I believe it's RGG Studio makes the Like a Dragon and Yakuza series. Honestly, the funny thing is, this is the first game in that series that's kind of caught my attention. Now, of course, the previous entry, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I want to say, has Dondoku Island, which is a Animal Crossing game baked into it. And that did pique my interest in it, but ultimately I never jumped over and never tried it out. Pirates, man. Come on. Like, if you haven't been following this game, I don't know the characters. I know there's Ichiban and there's another one that I can't remember. There's two sort of that I hear about a lot. I know the story behind this one is one of these characters, I believe he gets knocked out and then somehow he wakes up thinking he's a pirate and everyone just treats him as a pirate, but it's actually he basically finds this weird pirate shanty town type thing in modern day or something like that. And he thinks he's a pirate and he's in Hawaii. And I'm like, come on, that doesn't get much better than that. So anyways, I'm excited to see how this one performs. I'm sure, and when I say performs, I mean critically and, whatever, do people like it? I'm sure it will find a following because I think RGG Studios has kind of been on a run with their recent releases in the Like a Dragon series. But ultimately, these games live and die by their diehard fan base. So there's a couple of people I follow online that I'll be looking forward to seeing what they think of Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, releasing February 28th. The other big release on February 28th as well, of course, these two sneaking in right at the end of February, Monster Hunter Wilds, coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X. Now, speaking of this, I believe Monster Hunter Wilds is having another, air quotes, beta. It might be an open beta, but they're having another test right now or coming up very shortly, later in January or something like that. And I think it's a more wide release than it was previously. I don't know if that means more platforms or what the case is. I think previously it was maybe only on PS5. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, obviously Monster Hunter, another storied franchise that's been around for quite a while. Of course, I believe, I don't know if it started, but it used to be very big on the PSP. Eventually came over to other platforms, kind of expanded, of course, and really got big with, I believe there was both Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Worlds. It might have just been World, no S, no plural. But anyways, those two releases, of course, kind of brought Monster Hunter into the public consciousness in a lot bigger way than it was previously. And a lot of people really, really loved it. I personally, I've tried one of the Monster Hunters on PSP and I didn't get it. It just didn't click with me. Now, that said, I might have just been playing the demo, and I want to say when I was playing it, I may have just played it over and over again to try and get into it, and I could kind of see it, but I also really felt like it was just too clunky and too difficult to navigate and that kind of thing for me personally. I did try the Monster Hunter Wilds, the last beta that they had. Of course, really impressive visually, really impressive technically in what they're doing and everything. But again, in terms of that trial, that short period of time I did spend with it, it didn't really hook me. Now, I do think there's something to be said about almost having someone coach you through it, tell you where to start and how to play. And hey, these weapons are better for beginners. These weapons are a little bit more straightforward to use, because I did find some of the controls to be a little bit overwhelming and okay, you're holding L1, while pressing circle, and then pressing circle to do a certain attack, but you let go of L1 and press circle and it does something different. And then you hold L1 and do triangle. That launches you into the air, but then you want to hit a different button or let go of L1 and then press triangle again. It became a lot. And one thing that I actually appreciate about some of the streamers that I follow is they'll play games like these and they'll go into it and they'll kind of say to their audience, I'm not a fan of this series, or it's not that I'm not a fan, but I've never played it before. And I want you, my chat, my audience, to help me get into it, kind of thing. And you see people do this with Souls games a lot of the time when they've never played them before. They go into it and they encourage their audience, the chat and everything, to help them, guide them through it, right? This is actually one of the big reasons why I've only played the first few worlds in, I think, Demon Souls a number of times, is because I have the remaster in PS5. And I don't want to have the confusion or the ambiguity of, okay, I did world 1-1. Now I got to go to world 1-2-1. Now world whatever 3-3, and jumping around through the archstones like you do. I've watched the entire game streamed a couple of times, so I should probably know by now which archstone you go to in what order. And of course, you could just Google it. But if I were to ever actually seriously play through the game, I would love to have that interaction with chat and say, okay, starting here, doing this, give me your tips. What class should I go with? What item should be my starting item? Where do I go from here? Do I want to go down this hallway? Do I want to pursue this? Where do I find the crow? And where do I drop the shiny object? What shiny object do I drop? And these kind of questions that, if you're a Souls fan, you know exactly what I was just getting at with all of that. But Monster Hunter feels like one of those games too, where I'd love to go into it with either someone who's a little more experienced and can tell me, okay, don't pick that weapon. It's not for beginners. Pick this thing. It's a lot more simple. You'll get into it a lot better. And I know Monster Hunter Wilds is also, in a lot of ways, meant to be more of a cooperative experience. So anyways, coming out on February 20th. So look forward to that one. Moving on to March. Let's see what's going on in March. This Carmen Sandiego game, I saw this in, I think, January for iOS and Android. March 4th, it's coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox One, and Series X. I'm going to have to look into this game because I don't know what this is, but my daughter actually watched Carmen Sandiego's, she has a cartoon show on Netflix, and I thought it was a really fun show, and she liked it. So I'm going to have to look into this game, but that's all I can really say about that. Looking for some other ones here. Another one that we've talked about on Grow Up Level Up, of course, Split Fiction. PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, coming March 6th. That is, of course, Joseph Ferris's game. I can never remember the studio name, and I apologize. I'm not going to try and open a new tab because I will probably blow up this PC that I'm recording on if I try to do that. But Split Fiction, latest game from Joseph Ferris, of course, previously made It Takes Two, A Way Out, and I think there's another one. But anyways, revealed at the Game Awards as that studio's latest entry. Looks very It Takes Two-esque in a lot of the way it functions, cooperative, two people, each of you has your own thing going, and you're making your way through these worlds and levels that are dedicated to sort of where you are in the story, right? Of course, these games are lauded for having very purpose-built mechanics for that point in the game, right? And doing it very well, which is something that, a lot of games struggle to do. So I'm looking forward to this one. Of course, again, we've talked about it on Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club before. I think Samson and I are both looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to playing through it with my wife. But yeah, coming out March 6th. I actually had no idea it was that soon. So that's exciting for me and hopefully for you. Moving on from there, I'll shout out Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster Gate Rune and Dunan Unification Wars. I have no idea what that second part is, that Dunan Unification Wars. I'm not sure if that's meant to be a separate bullet point, but it is coming out March 6th as well. I'll shout it out only because Jared Petty of formerly of IGN, once upon a time worked a lot with the Kind of Funny community, worked for Google Stadia for a while there, works now at Limited Run Games, I think. Anyways, he would always speak very highly of the Suikoden series, and I've personally never gone back to try either of them. So anyways, I'll shout that out for the time being. Moving on from there as well, Assassin's Creed Shadows, PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, March 20th. Interesting stuff here, because if we had done this episode last week, this game would have been coming out on February 14th, I believe on Valentine's Day. They did just recently delay it a month. A lot of questions around that game. Of course, I think, everyone was, excited to see Assassin's Creed finally make the jump to feudal Japan. That's something that had been requested or highly sought after by the community for a long time. But in a lot of ways, I think it felt a little late to the party, especially after a game like Rise of the Ronin came out. I believe that was last year in 2024. And, did the whole, assassin in feudal Japan style game, or samurai in feudal Japan. And of course, that's even on the heels of Ghost of Tsushima coming out. So samurais have now been done, and I think done very well, in multiple different instances prior to Assassin's Creed Shadows. Who knows? Assassin's Creed, of course, it's got a lot going for it. It's a storied franchise at this point. And Ubisoft, of course, has a lot riding on this game, with tons of rumors about them looking for a buyer and looking to sell off the company. So anyways, looking forward to seeing how this one does. Looking forward to seeing if it hits, because if it hits, hey, that could be very good for them. But if it doesn't, I mean, man, Ubisoft, not a lot of hits lately. Another swing and a miss if that's the case. The other thing, of course, with Assassin's Creed Shadows is a month delay is, for all intents and purposes, next to nothing when it comes to video games. So what's that all about, right? Is there more going on there? Who knows? Anyways, moving on from there, lots of other releases in March. None that I think I need to really shout out. I'll shout out the first Berserker Kazan coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X in March 27th. I'll only really shout it out because I remember the name. I think I remember the gameplay. This was one that I think was shown off at the Game Awards as well, and I always get it mixed up with Expedition 33. Both of those games had kind of a really stunning, cool visual look to them. Seemed to be sort of Souls-like, if I'm recalling correctly. And yeah, just looked like it could be interesting. Strokes the beard. So anyways, moving on from there. Let's jump into April here. Another short list for April. Of course, as we get further into the year, we know less and less hard dates for games releasing. But at the top of the list, April 3rd, Last of Us Part 2 Remastered PC, not PS5. This one, obviously exciting because the Last of Us series previously locked to PlayStation hardware. Of course, Last of Us Part 1 Remastered did come to PC and had an abysmal launch. I believe the port was actually quite bad and really plagued with problems. Not a good look on Sony. I don't know which studio or which team they had do the port, but I'm hopeful they have more success with Last of Us Part 2 Remastered coming to PC. And this could be enough to get me to replay Last of Us Part 2. It is a game that I've only played once. I think Part 1 I played through once, and then I played through a second time just before Part 2 came out, the first time. But I also played a ton of the multiplayer of Last of Us Part 1, so I feel like I spent a lot more time with that one. Whereas Last of Us Part 2, I mean, it released during the height of the pandemic. Very serious story about isolation, loneliness, just hatred and problems with other people and things like that. So, I could definitely go for it again. I think I remember maybe the big story beats, but I don't think I remember a ton of the game. So yeah, one that I wouldn't be playing it on PC if I did jump it back into it. But hey, for all those people who missed out on it on PlayStation, they'll be able to get it on PC on April 3rd. Moving on from there, do I recognize or do I need to talk about any of the other releases scheduled for April? I do not. We've even got a couple TBA ones here. Fantasy Life I and Ratatan, also TBA. I don't think I need to shout those out because I don't know what they are, but I just shouted them out. So anyways, I just remembered one that I wanted to talk about in March. Let's scroll back to March. And we have Tales of the Shire coming to PC, PS5, Switch, and Xbox Series X on March 25th. So just to touch on Tales of the Shire, I feel like I always love to have a cozy game on the go, right? For a long time, Animal Crossing, of course, I'm a big Animal Crossing stan. For a while there, Disney Dreamlight Valley, I played with both my wife and my kid. They both had their own file. My kid couldn't read and can't really read very well. There was a lot of reading for her and playing for her in a lot of ways, but was pretty into that for a while. And I'm kind of itching for another. I tried Infinity Nikki for a little bit. Wasn't too into it. And it's not that I really had anything against the game. Just felt like it starts a little bit slow. And I wasn't too impressed with things like the platforming felt very clunky and limited. And I get it. It's supposed to, but it just felt a lot like all of the controls were kind of sticky and stiff. And I want something a little more fluid and motionful. I almost said motionless. Anyways, I'm looking forward to Tales of the Shire as a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm hopeful that it turns out to be really good because everything that I've heard from previews and such is that it's really not that interesting. But anyways, I got my fingers crossed that it turns out to be quite good. We talked about April already. I had to rewind for Tales of the Shire. So let's move on. Ooh, okay. Now we're getting into the really limited information side of things. I see for May, we've got literally one thing here. we've got Revenge of the Savage Planet, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X, with the official date TBA. Now, pause for a second while I have a sip of tea. Of course, I should mention, podcasting on your own, not a simple feat. Do not underestimate this if you are listening right now. Anyone who podcasts by themselves, I give them a ton of credit because it's a lot of effort to talk into a mic and essentially talk to yourself for 30 minutes to an hour. I see we're at 33:43 right now at the time of recording. So anyways, I applaud people who can do that. It's been a long time since I did this. I used to do my own podcast. I actually did it for 3 years or so. This February, if I'd continued with it, would have been 4 years. It would have been 4 years. Anyways, been a long time since I did this. So I can feel my throat going on me. So I've got my tea. Let's charge through this. So May, Revenge of the Savage Planet, coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X. Actual date TBA, not yet announced. So I don't have too much to say about this one. I'm only mentioning it because it's the only one on here for May. I know the name though, Revenge of the Savage Planet. I believe Savage Planet is the series, but that's all I could really say. Coming to all the sort of major platforms. So if you're looking forward to that, drop a line in the comments. Moving on down, we've got June with a game called Broken Arrow coming to PC, a TBA as well. Nothing to say about that really. And then we come to October, where we know the Double Dragon Revive coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X on October 23rd. That's kind of funny that, we literally, once we get to May, we have one game that is slated for that month. June, we've got one game slated for that month. And then we jump to October, where we have a specific date for Double Dragon. So this is a bit of an interesting one, of course. We've talked a lot about storied franchises and franchises that have been around for a long time. Double Dragon might just be the longest standing franchise in this list that we've actually talked about here. I believe Double Dragon comes from the arcade days, if not like Genesis days, Sega. So anyways, I've heard a little bit of hype around this. Seems like they're putting a lot into the game that is going to please fans of the series, right? I personally have no connection to Double Dragon. I honestly couldn't even tell you where it did start. I'm going to just do a quick search. Can I? Double Dragon. Let's see. Double Dragon beat 'em up game series originally developed and published. Technos Japan began with the release of the arcade game Double Dragon in 1987. There you have it. I was totally right. It was actually, I said Genesis, didn't I? Not even arcade, but yeah, I should have known it was an arcade game. Anyways, storied franchise, long-standing. Like I say, probably the longest one I saw on this list. So I'm sure lots of people are hyped for that one. So we'll shout it out here. Me personally, no real connection. So anyways, now we get to, in some ways, the fun part of the list. 2025 video game releases with no release date. Let's scroll down and take a look at this list. Of course, the big one with the cover photo there, but I'll come back to that. If you're not watching the video version, the cover photo is GTA 6. Okay, let's see where we start things. It is an alphabetical list. Sorry about that. I have another sip of tea. And the first one on the list is 2XKO, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Personally, I don't have too much hype for this game in terms of actually getting my hands on it or playing it or anything like that. But I am hyped to see how this game does. 2XKO, of course, is the 2D-ish fighting game coming from Riot Games. I believe it also takes place in the League of Legends world or universe. So think, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, that style game or that style fighting game, but with characters from League of Legends. So I'm very excited and for all intents and purposes, everything I've heard, interviews I've seen with the developer and things like that, people loved the previous sort of test that this game put out. You've got some of your favorite characters from League of Legends appearing in it. And of course, League of Legends at this point, hot off the heels of Arcane Season 2 or, that storyline in Arcane wrapping up, I would say that League of Legends hype is probably at maybe not an all-time high, but definitely at a high. So I'm sure when this game drops, Riot Games will be promoting the hell out of it, and all your League of Legends fans out there will be, praising, shouting the name from the rooftops, 2XKO. I'm not even sure if they've officially said that's what the name is going to be, or if that's still a code name. I don't know that. I understand what it's getting at because I believe it is like sort of a tag team style fighter, and I believe that's where the name would come from, like 2 times KO 2. Both of the tag team. I don't know. Anyways, I'm excited to see how it does. I'm also excited to watch streams of it. I'm not much of a fighting game guy. I used to dabble in Street Fighter, of course. And I always like watching, fatalities and brutalities and things like that in Mortal Kombat. But beyond that, I've never really been able to get into fighting games. But I'm excited to see how this one does. The art style looks amazing. And of course, tons for them to pull on in universe and everything like that. So I'm excited to see how that one does. After that, we've got 33 Immortals Early Access coming to PC and Xbox Series X, oddly enough. Interesting that they're doing early access there. 33 Immortals, another one that I believe was shown off at a Jeff Keighley joint, either Summer Games Fest. I think it was Summer Games Fest. I feel like we've known about that one longer than Game Awards. But again, one that I can think of the name, but I can't quite think of or picture what it looks like. So anyways, apparently we know it is coming out this year. Next on the list, and I'm shouting out quite a few of these ones just because, they are announced. But again, we don't have much details on them. Anno 117 Romana. Of course, I shout this one out because I know the Anno name. I can't even think of the first one's actual name. But again, drop a comment if you're excited for the Anno series to come back. Scrolling on down from there, we've got lots of other things that are announced. Next one I'll shout out, coming to PC and PS5, supposedly in 2025, is Baby Steps. Now, this game, I don't recall who it's by, but this is, of course, the game where you play as essentially a full-grown man who walks like a toddler and wears sort of a diaper and is like climbing a mountain. Very much in the vein of, your co-op style, or I think it's going to be like one of those sort of party streaming games like Chained Together, which of course I think was big just last year. And I think this will be kind of in that same vein of lots of laughs, lots of goofs, very funny to watch people play. If they have a co-op mode, of course, I'm sure that would be hilarious and everything like that. So I'm excited to see that one come out because, again, a lot of the streamers and content creators I watch, I'm sure will have some good clips of it. Moving on from there, one that's announced for 2025. Of course, this one was unveiled at the Game Awards by Jeff Keighley. Borderlands 4 coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Now, if I had to pick out any of these on this list that won't actually come out next year, I think Borderlands 4 fits the bill. The fact that it was unveiled in December, and of course, we've known that it's coming for a long time. Borderlands is a huge franchise, I think, bigger than a lot of people give it credit for. Especially when Borderlands 3 didn't necessarily scratch the itch that people wanted it to. It wasn't, I think, as big as Borderlands 1 and 2. And then, of course, coming off the abysmal movie that came out, I don't think there's a ton of hype around Borderlands 4. And I get the feeling that the announcement at Game Awards was kind of Jeff went all out. Jeff Keighley, of course, host and producer of the Game Awards. I think he kind of went all out in getting the announcements and getting the big bombshell moments for this most recent year's Game Awards. And I do think that Borderlands 4 seems a little bit more like a marketing thing / investor hype. It was an announcement so that they can officially talk about it to investors and say, yep, Borderlands 4 is coming. Be excited about this. Of course, Gearbox Studios is the developer. And it'll hit when it hits. I really just don't see this game coming out within a year of being announced. If it is, October, November, that kind of window I could see, holiday season kind of thing. You're also going up against big shooters like Call of Duty at that point, assuming there's a Call of Duty coming out this year, which we don't necessarily know there is because, of course, Microsoft completed the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And this would maybe be the first Call of Duty game that they are putting out under their umbrella that was largely developed well under Microsoft. Black Ops 6, of course, came out last year and was released under the Microsoft banner, but I think it was very much mostly finished by the time Microsoft really came into the picture there. I think it was mostly done under the Activision banner. So anyways, Borderlands 4, supposedly coming next year. Moving on from there, let's see what else we've got to really hit on here. Big release, Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, coming to PS5. I'd just like to ask, what is with this subtitle, On the Beach? That's not a good subtitle. That's what? Death Stranding 2 On the Beach. Like that is like that's the title of a stream you do when you go and decide to play a video game on the beach. You say, hey, I'm playing Kingdom Hearts, on the beach. And you go sit on the beach with your laptop and play Kingdom Hearts. That's what that strikes me as. That's a weird title. Now, granted, Death Stranding, weird series, weird game. All that stuff. Hideo Kojima. So, who's really surprised? But regardless, Death Stranding 2 coming out next year. I still have yet to play Death Stranding 1. I do have it, actually, but I've just never touched it because, I don't know, it feels like you really got to be in a certain mood and willing to spend some time walking, I guess, traversing, delivering packages. And I just never really got into it. I love the weirdness of the Kojima games, Metal Gear Solid series and everything. I love hearing other people talk about it. But for me, I've just never had any desire to get into it. Anyways, Death Stranding 2 on the beach coming next year, supposedly. Moving on down, let's scroll. Let's see, another big release. Doom the Dark Ages coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Of course, more Doom, which is always exciting. The past 2 Doom games, of course, Doom 2016, I believe, and Doom Eternal were pretty big hits. Revival of the Doom franchise, of course, by id Studios, I want to say, published by Bethesda, of course, now owned by Microsoft. But that kind of leads into my next part, which is, again, interesting stuff, because this is a Microsoft release coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. So, of course, I believe this will be on Game Pass day one, but ultimately it will also be on PS5. Now, you would have to buy the full copy, I'm sure, but regardless, we're starting to see a bit of a change here in Microsoft and how they're putting out these games. So interesting stuff there. I think does look interesting, certainly. I think there were fair criticisms of Doom Eternal, of course, the sequel to Doom 2016 that came out. And it seems like with the Dark Ages, they're kind of looking at all that criticism and taking it to heart and kind of making a better, cooler product. Not to say Eternal is bad by any means, but I think it didn't quite hit the same as the 2016 Doom that came out. So moving on from there, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D releasing on PC, PS5, Switch, and Xbox Series X next year. Interesting stuff there. Of course, remakes of the first 2 Dragon Quest games. So I'm sure there's lots of people that are hyped about that. Let's see what else we've got. Of course, another one announced at the Game Awards, Elden Ring Night Reign, coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. I'm shocked that this is coming to PS4 and Xbox One. That must mean that Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree both came to those platforms as well. And I had no idea. I would have told you this was PC, PS5, and Xbox Series only. But anyways, Elden Ring Night Reign, again, another one announced at the Game Awards. Big deal. FromSoft putting out technically their second DLC to Elden Ring. I don't know actually if this one is standalone. So it'd be very interesting if it is, given all the hullabaloo around Shadow of the Erdtree being nominated for Game of the Year when it was a DLC. But regardless, exciting to hear that it's coming out next year, because it does feel like, FromSoft just can't stop, won't stop. And I'm sure, although I don't think this one necessarily interests me, just given how I play Elden Ring, I don't think I want to play an Elden Ring roguelite, let alone cooperative roguelite. Sorry about that. But I am very curious to see the reception, and of course, I'm excited to watch, my favorite streamers play through it together, stuff like that. So, Elden Ring Night Reign, apparently coming out next year as well. Shocking stuff. That one I do believe will come out next year. Again, when I come back to like Borderlands 4, I don't think that's coming out next year. But even Doom the Dark Ages, I'm a little bit skeptical of that coming out next year. I think it could hit, but I'm not convinced. There's a better chance it hits than Borderlands 4, that's for sure. But regardless, Elden Ring Night Reign will come out next year. I believe when FromSoft says 2025 that they'll hit that. Moving on down from there, another big Microsoft release, Fable, of course, listed as PC and Xbox Series X, coming out supposedly next year. I'm excited for Fable, although there's a good chance I won't play this unless, maybe I just buy Game Pass for the month and jump in, because it'll be day one on Game Pass. I'm excited for this because I really love the humor and the trailer that they put out already. Now, that trailer was very much a tone piece, a teaser in a lot of ways, just kind of giving you the vibe of the game, showing you, hey, here's what we're going for. Here's the type of humor you'll see. And I believe there was like maybe the tiniest snippet of gameplay. So there's a lot still to be shown off about this game, but I'm excited to see if it does in fact come out next year. On a scale of Elden Ring Night Reign to Doom the Dark Ages to Borderlands 4, I would put it close to, I would probably go Elden Ring Night Reign comes out next year for sure. I'd probably go next most likely Doom the Dark Ages, then Fable, then Borderlands 4. Honestly, I just really don't think Borderlands 4, I just feel like that was just announced with a clearly CG trailer, like no gameplay, no specific details given. I don't even know if it actually set a platform that it was coming to or not. But I just really don't think that Borderlands 4 is coming out next year. But anyways, even Fable, I'm not convinced, unfortunately, because we know it's been in development for a long time. So I hope it's coming. Moving on from there, probably my most anticipated release of next year, Ghost of Yote, coming to PS5. Of course, I've talked before about the Ghost Now franchise on this show. I'm a huge fan of Ghost of Tsushima. I think I can understand all its criticisms. And for me personally, I do not care at all. I had such a blast with that game. I loved every moment of it, even the repetitive nature of, hey, I'm chasing another fox. Hey, I'm finding another shrine. Hey, I'm fighting another group of 3 or 4 guys that stumbled across me on the path. Whatever. I love that game so much. One of the few games that made me want to get a tattoo of the game. I haven't, but I would love to. But yeah, I'm just such a big fan of that, and such a big fan of Sucker Punch. Huge fan of the Sly Cooper series and the Infamous series as well. Again, these guys are up there for me for a lot of people, but for me with Insomniac in probably some of my favorite developers. So I'm very much looking forward to Ghost of Yote. And yeah, I'll be playing it day one. Right after Ghost of Yote, of course, in the alphabetical list, is Grand Theft Auto 6 coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. Now, this one is actually listed as fall 2025, which is interesting because, again, another one that we don't have a hard date for, just like all of these. Another one that I could see slipping. I don't know what will happen for sure. A lot of the games industry is eagerly anticipating more information about this one. Of course, we got a trailer, and that was it. And the trailer was even, leaked, unfortunately, ahead of time. But anyways, supposedly coming out next year. We'll see. Obviously, this game will light the world on fire, as a Grand Theft Auto game does. Me personally, I don't really care. I've never been big on Grand Theft Auto. My first Grand Theft Auto that I ever played was Grand Theft Auto 3 back on the PS2. It was because, at the time, my parents had some family friends staying with us. They had 2 boys who were right around mine and my sister's age. And we went to Blockbuster to rent a movie, and we said, can we rent a game? And they said, oh, we love Grand Theft Auto. Can we get Grand Theft Auto? And my dad had no idea. And I must have been 8, maybe 10, maybe 12, something around there. And that's how I experienced Grand Theft Auto 3 for the first time. And I was blown away that games could be like this. Like, I had no idea you could kill hookers and drive over people and all sorts of stuff like that. So that was my first experience with Grand Theft Auto, but it just never really came back to anything meaningful for me. GTA 4 was a big deal when it released for me. At that point I was 16, 17, maybe 15. Anyways, and of course I was all about the, major releases. So I picked it up, beat it, played through it and everything, thought it was fun. It was a game. But yeah, like even GTA 5, I only tried just this past year, and man, the controls were abysmal. So I hope they improve that. But anyways, Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out next year. Moving on from there, let's just see here. Oh, bumped the mic. Sorry about that for everyone listening, audio and such. Moving on from there, we've got Judas on here, PC, PS5, Xbox Series X. Of course, Judas, the latest game from Ken Levine, the original maker of BioShock and I believe System Shock, or BioShock just a spiritual successor to System Shock. Anyways, doesn't matter. We've seen very little of that game, although he has done previews with certain outlets. Like I think GameSpot had one with Lucy James, and she's the only one I actually remember being on that. So, shout out to Lucy James. But anyways, sorry, trying to get my camera to focus again. There we go. Yeah, Judas, if that comes out next year, will be a big deal. And one that I'll be very interested in. I'd like to see more because I don't think we've actually seen any gameplay at this point. If we have, it feels very concept-y gameplay. So I'm excited to see, where things go with Judas. Coming on down, we've got other big releases here. Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, PC, PS5, Xbox Series X. That game, although everything we've seen and heard about it is awesome, I believe that's the one being led by Amy Hennig, of course, who comes from the Legacy of Kain games and Uncharted 3. Worked on the Uncharted series, was supposed to head up Uncharted 4, and then apparently her project got scrapped for no apparent reason. Was then supposed to work on a Star Wars game, which then got scrapped, and is now working on this Marvel game. I'm very hopeful we see this game, is the big thing. At this point, we haven't seen or heard very much of it, but we've got our fingers crossed because I believe it's old school Captain America in, the 90s with not T'Challa, not the Black Panther of MCU, but I believe his dad. So very excited to see how this one turns out. Obviously, big Marvel fans on Grow Up Level Up, but we'll see what happens there. Other big ones to mention here, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond coming to Switch. Is this a Switch 2 launch title? Who knows? Definitely could be. seems like every day we get closer to that. So we'll see what happens there. So going on down through the list, I'll shout out a few that I don't have much to say, but like Ninja Gaiden Ragebound announced at the Game Awards, Pokemon Legends Z-A or ZA coming to Switch. Again, Switch or Switch 2, maybe both. We'll see. Slay the Spire 2 coming to PC. That's a big deal. I just recently tried Slay the Spire 1 actually on PS5. So that's a big deal for sure. South of Midnight, another Microsoft one coming to PC and Xbox Series X. One thing I didn't mention before when I was talking about Fable is that it's not listed as PS5 as well, and neither is South of Midnight. So interesting stuff there. Splitgate 2 coming to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Series X. Of course, Splitgate was a sort of, I think the sort of idea behind it was Halo, like, Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3 kind of multiplayer with portal guns. And so you can shoot portals and fly across the map and stuff like that. I know Splitgate 1 had a sort of a low key, but like a good following online and everything when it was big. And I believe they got a lot bigger than they were able to manage. And I believe what the developer actually came out and said was, hey, rather than divide the team between Splitgate 1 and Splitgate 2, we're going to basically just wrap Splitgate 1. We're going to focus on Splitgate 2 and have the whole team move over so that we can deliver a really excellent experience with Splitgate 2. So competitive multiplayer shooter that, I am looking forward to, honestly. So we'll see how that turns out. Going on from there, any other big ones here? The Outer Worlds 2, another Microsoft one, Microsoft / not Bethesda, but the other one that made New Vegas. I can't remember who they were. Doesn't matter. Coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. So again, this one does list PS5. So interesting stuff we've got going on here with what's announced with PC Xbox exclusivity versus PS5. Anyways, I'm supposedly coming out next year. Other than that, looking at the end of this list, that kind of takes us to the bottom. There's a few other things here that I could mention, but ultimately I'm not really going to. Shout out again to Michael McWhorter and Polygon.com for this article, because that obviously helped me talk for an hour to myself and all of you fine folks. If you enjoyed what you heard here, then hey, please drop a comment below. Tell us what you're looking forward to in 2025. Now, with all that said, I'll wrap the show here because, hey, we're at the hour mark. I did it. I made a whole episode of myself talking into a microphone, looking at games coming out next year, and that was fun. So if you enjoyed what you heard here, check out Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club on all social media platforms. Just search for Grow Up Level Up, Twitter or Blue Sky or what have you. And follow us, of course, on all those platforms, but also over on YouTube. If you weren't watching the YouTube version of this, go check out Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club just check out Grow Up Level Up on YouTube. You'll find this video and you'll get to watch as I scroll through this list and talk to you about the upcoming games in 2025. You can find Samson, our regular host, over on all the social media platforms at Samson XP, I believe. I should have looked it up ahead of time, but that's all I can offer you right now. I believe he's smsn.bsky. Whatever on Blue Sky. It would, Blue Sky tags are weird. I don't get it. And then of course I'm SirDrJM. That's at SirDrJM on all social platforms. You can find me over on Blue Sky. Instagram are the big two right now. So that's going to be it for the Grow Up Level Up Gamers Club this week. Come back next week or come join us next week where Samson will be back and he'll tell us all about a little trip that he's been on. Hopefully, again, cross your fingers because things are happening in the world that may not allow that to happen, but cross your fingers that he has some exciting stuff to tell us about next week. Thanks very much for listening. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. At the end of every episode, we end every episode with Samson asking me for some words of wisdom, and I always pull them from a video game magazine of old that I have. Now, I didn't prep this, and I didn't grab a new one, so I'm just going to grab the one from last week, which was, of course, PlayStation Official Magazine, the June 2011 issue, which is issue 46. So let me flip to a random page here, and my words of wisdom for this week are going to be, let's see. Once again, the elusive man, head honcho of pro-human group Cerebus, is up to no good. Now I have to figure out how to stop the recording. Samson, stop the recording before